Women Innovators. Interviews with women with big messages and big missions, sharing their stories to inspire you to live your passion and step up to make the world a better place. Here's your host, Tammy Patzer.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, former dance champion, Bonnie Diaz. She has written a book, Ballroomology, and she also has the Ballroomology.com website, and it's all dedicated to the art of ballroom dancing, its history, preservation, and other relevant dance news. And we're even going to talk a little bit about one of her favorite topics, and that's all about Ballroom Barks. But right now, Bonnie, I wanted to welcome you because Ballroomology, your book, is trending up on Amazon. So congratulations on that. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, and thank you for having me here, Tammy. Thank you.
Great. So Ballroomology, you have quite the background as a champion ballroom dancer. You were a champion between 1978 and 1994.
Right.
And you actually created this book and website to honor someone. And so tell me a little bit more about the background about Ballroomology and how you decided to put all this together.
Well, it all starts with my mentor, Mr. Bob Medeiros, who, for lack of a better word, discovered me when I was an early dancer, probably 19 or 20 in Boston. He pretty much put me under his wing and really was responsible for my success in the ballroom world. Because of him, sadly, he passed away in 1993, I was able to receive from his partner his original super 8mm films of competition dancing. It's a tongue twister. And we converted it to digital video files. And we made the Ballroomology.com website to honor him because he was the first champion of the United States. And he is responsible for everything you see. Because of him is why people dance like Dancing on the Stars today. It's because of him. And he brought all the authentic rhythms and technique from all over the world and pretty much trained everybody. And that was the result of that. And I wanted to honor him with that. So we made that website so that people had it as a reference so they could see what really happened before Dancing with the Stars, because many people think Dancing with the Stars just popped open. They don't really see that there's a whole legacy that goes with that. And because we didn't have those venues when we danced, I mean, we had little TV blurbs, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have dance shows. So people don't know the lineage, people don't know the heritage, people don't know the history of how things develop. So it was my honor to do that for him.
You're right. As you were talking, I was thinking back about what I would see on television, and until Dancing with the Stars, dancing really wasn't part of anything. You might see figure skating,
right,
but dancing, other than the really old Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers movies, right, I cannot really recall having any recollection of watching people dance, and the legacy that you have brought to life by getting those old Super 8 movies actually is quite the tribute. So you've actually, you're retired now from ballroom dancing, right?
Well, from competing.
Competing, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're still active in the dance community. So when you wrote the book, Ballroomology, you told me that you divided it up into 3 different categories: spirit, mind, and body. Can you tell me more about your thought process behind that? And maybe share some of the lessons that you've learned from being in the dance community?
Yes, of course. Most people do body, mind, spirit. I chose to do spirit, mind, body because I felt after I retired that my soul or the way I felt about everything was never acknowledged while I was a competitor. And if something didn't feel right or I was emotionally upset, there was nobody to help me with anything. Basically, I could go to the gym, I could go to a dance class, I could go to a coach. Someone could teach me how to focus really strongly in a lesson. But when I actually won a championship or I didn't win a championship, there was still a huge crash when I was done. And it was very uncomfortable. And I never knew why that happened. And I think it was because I had many unanswered questions. Why a performance didn't go well. Why I was dancing with my partner. And unfortunately, we had a fight before we went on. And we didn't know how to separate those emotions. And I still today think when competitors compete, the same issues are happening. And I wanted them to know that I experienced it. And I think not many people spoke about it. And when I did publish this book and started publishing a blog, I had a very famous world exhibition champion call me. I will not mention her name because I have not asked her permission, but she called me and she was shocked that I wrote about the details that I wrote about feeling uncomfortable in a competition, not liking yourself, feeling politically that if I didn't take from one coach, I wouldn't get a good mark. I had to dress or act a certain way. Technically, why couldn't I perform something? When someone is judging you in a competition, it is subjective, not objective. When you do ice skating, years ago, they would have a preliminary competition where you had to dance the basic figures first before you did your open routines. They don't have that in ballroom. You just go out there and you do it. And it's whoever likes you that day or whoever doesn't like you that day. Can be very traumatizing. I think people get depressed. I think people use drugs and alcohol because spiritually they're upset that they don't have any backup to help them through it. I've seen phenomenal dancers never make it because of these issues. People that are not such good dancers make it because they probably have some kind of backing behind them or they have a little bit more stronger character or perseverance. I find in general, artists are very gentle people on the inside. They get hurt very easily. And I can relate it to taking an acting class. And one of the famous people said to me, when you're working with somebody, because I choreograph for a lot of people in New York and all over the world, and they're very nervous about themselves already. You know, they're putting themselves out there. They're very vulnerable. And what this person said to me said, remember, when you're working with people, the wall is already half up. The wall is already half up. So if you continue, you got to make them drop the wall so that they'll be open and receive, and they will grow. And that lesson always stayed with me. And being in a competition, it's literally like being a gladiator. You understand? You put on your armor and you're out there with 25, 30 couples at a time. You're trying to make the callbacks and the rounds. It's not a solo exhibition. And then you get down to the final 6, and then you're still trying to do it. And even if you think you're the best person out there, doesn't mean you're going to win. So it's a very emotional time for people. And I find that going to the gym and trying to meditate doesn't always help you. Getting a spiritual awareness helps you to deal with what's going on in your body and your mind as you're depending on another person to produce a performance. So when I wrote the Ballroomology, that's what I had in mind.
Wow. As a non-dancer, I'm listening and I would put myself on a creative scale. I'm creative, but Absolutely. Not in the physical sense and I think you're so right about that spirit, mind, body, because an athlete, you can train your body to be as strong and to do different things. But if your mind is not connected to your body, it doesn't quite work right. And then certainly to keep going on in the competition where you're, like you said, it starts out with maybe 30 some people and then it goes down to 6, and it doesn't matter if you are technically the best, you still might not win.
Right.
So how did you come to this conclusion that the spirit was so important above the mind and the body?
I have always considered myself a very intuitive person and always listened to my gut. I always, while I was competing, I would always go to different people that learned how to do meditation or mental practices, or you'll find an athlete that's trying to find a mental focus pattern that they're trying to do. And I found them to work, but they never stayed. It only worked for a little bit, and then it didn't work again. And remember, you're dealing with another person, whether you're married or not. It's like a marriage. So you have that whole other entity that you're working with. You have your energy, you have the other person's energy, and then you have the energy of the performance that you're both trying to create at the same time. And hopefully you're both on the same page. Sometimes you're not. So I myself, with my partner at the time, who was my husband, I now call him Mr. Diaz. His name was Richard Diaz. So I call him Mr. Diaz. We went to many seminars to try to learn how to apply things. And quite frankly, it wasn't until I met Mr. Trivedi that he actually talked about the divine, the energy transmissions, your perspective, your bioavailability, your adaptability, that I was able to put it in perspective and apply it in my own life. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it while I was dancing because I had already retired. But I felt that I could make this awareness happen to other people because I know it's a traumatizing thing that happens to them. And you'll find that there are many talented people in all forms of creative work, whether it is, painting or opera or dancing or ballet. All of them will tell you it's been horrible. I had to use drugs. I had to use alcohol. You look back at the famous artists that, they were all had terrible issues because their spirit was not being addressed. And this is why this wonderful champion called me. She said, you spoke about it. You spoke about what nobody else talks about. And it's my opinion that many people in the entertainment field, nobody comes to mind. Everybody is numbed out with something, wine, drugs, alcohol, to get through the pain, to get through the performance, to get through what they need to get through. It's very difficult to show up as yourself, what you've progressed to, and be there. It is not a comfortable feeling. It's always being uncomfortable. And I think that's the biggest thing I learned. And I was trying to help as many people as possible address those issues.
So as you worked with, and when you're talking about Mr. Trivedi, you're talking about Guruji Mahendra Trivedi.
Yes.
And I just want to make that clear. So if anybody was wondering who Mr. Trivedi is. So you start your book, Ballroomology, talking about the spiritual aspects of it, and then there you go to the mind aspects. What is your big message in your book related to the mind part of it?
Yes, the mind, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is having a clear mental focus with no mind chatter. And I think and when I'm saying this as a performer, it's constantly judging yourself. Because if you're a performer, you're constantly in the mirror looking at yourself, doing something. And you're hating yourself because it's not what you want and you can't make it work and you just don't like the look and you've seen yourself and you're in the class and then you go to a coaching, you think you're good, you look at the video performance when you're done and you can't look at yourself. You hate it. It took me years to be able to look at myself. But it is the mental focus of trying to stay true to that compass of what you're trying to produce and trust that where you are is okay. But it's very uncomfortable because you're judging yourself so much. If you said to me, Bonnie, sing a song, I would pass out right now. No, I can't. I can't. Do you know what I mean? I hear the voice. I go, no, I can't. For years, I would be in front of the mirror practicing, and my coaches would be looking at me saying, don't you see? They would say, you're looking, but you're not seeing. You're looking, but you're not seeing. And it was just learning how not to have that mental chatter and that tape going on in your head, judging you, telling you over and over again, no good, no good, no good. And it's utilizing the energy of Guruji Mahendra Trivedi with the spiritual connection to the divine universe, life force, energies, God of your understanding, whatever you want to call it, that allows you to stay calm and focus your mind to be able to do and produce what you want to do when you want to produce it. Not sometimes. That's the hard part, not being consistent. So if you're doing something and you're judging or not being judged, you're producing something that you want consciously the way you want it done. And I think that is the most difficult thing that people as artists have a real hard time confronting and speaking about publicly.
What you're talking about, it's very interesting because I'm thinking about, even if you're not a ballroom dancer, anyone just living life, you're under this pressure.
Right.
And like what you're saying about that mind chatter and you're literally describing looking in the mirror and yet saying to yourself that mind chatter, it's not good enough, it's not good enough. However, technically, it's probably at that highest level of athletic ability, because dancing to me does require the fact that you're in control of your body. So once you have your mind in control and you're connected to the divine, how important is the body part of all of this?
Well, your body is your instrument. Your body is your foundation. It's up to you as a dancer to honor the craft at all times. I know when I was performing, I was in ballet class every single day. When I had a show, I was in ballet class twice a day. I was at the gym. I was in yoga class. I was rehearsing 2 to 4 hours a day. I was getting as many coachings as possible. So it's a non-ending relationship. I would look at myself when I would do a performance and I would think it would be horrible. Yet I would be receiving a standing ovation. So, I still attribute that back to spirit, knowing that you're just not comfortable with yourself. You're out of place. There's a mind chatter happening. You're not hooked up to any kind of divine intelligence. And the hardest thing to remember, which I say to people, is you're dancing with another person. So you have all of their issues. And if one person is at one consciousness and one person has a lower consciousness, it is horrible. Absolutely horrible. Because the man, technically, for lack of a better word, and I hate to say it, he's in charge, meaning that he's leading, he's responsible, So you can be in rehearsal and I can tell you what I would like to happen or what would help me, get this out a little bit easier. But when it comes down to it, somebody's got to lead and somebody's got to follow. They call it partnering, but somebody has to start it, And it's very difficult if you have issues and if somebody's mind is chattering or if somebody's uncomfortable or somebody doesn't have the same technical expertise that you have. So you can only produce a certain amount of technicality well because the other person can't do it as well as you can. Yet you're stuck with this person, to try to finish the performance. It's really quite a range of emotions that you can go through. And that calmness of the divine energy really allows you to turn it around and make it work for you. So basically in life, it's the same thing in the ballroom dance world. It's the same thing in a ballet class. How many times you get knocked down? How many times can you get back up? How can you move forward? How can you turn around and make that work for you? How do you react when something really bad happens in a performance and you turn it around and you make it wonderful? It's how you respond. It's not receiving the bad energy. It's turning around and making it work for you. And I think that is what divine energy transmission does, divine awareness does, which when performers don't have it. So you have these phenomenal ballet dancers literally snorting cocaine before they walk out to the ballet stage to give them the courage to go and do it. Many people talk about it. in a book or later, their drug addiction because they didn't have the courage. They didn't know how to fix it. They were so uncomfortable with themselves. And it's all about that divine, like Trivedi, divine energy transmission. I'm going to make that word up. Trivine. That's a good word. Divine energy transmission for spirit, mind, and body. Again, your body is your foundation and your fundamentals. You can, I'll quote Bob Fosse, who obviously everybody knows. His daughter came to him and said, Daddy, I think I want to be a dancer. And he said to her, you poor child, you must go into ballet class every day and never come out. And that is what you're dealing with. Can you handle that?
Wow. It's so interesting to listen to you talk, Bonnie, because again, Ballroomology isn't just a book for people interested in ballroom dancing, obviously. It's really talking about life, about, like you said, the divine connection, the spirit, and how you have to operate from a clear or a place of clarity with your mind, and then, of course, your body as the instrument. You have to train it. You have to be physically fit and train it. And there's all of these things involved, the commitment, and like you said, getting over the fear of being out there. And then, of course, the commitment. I mean, there's so many levels to everything you're talking about. So what would you say of all of the things that you address in the book? What is, and it could be more than one thing, let's say, what are the top 3 things that someone who reads Ballroomology could walk away with that they could apply to their life in general, not just ballroom dancing?
Self-worth. That's the most important thing. And I will say this, that many people have a goal to be a dancer or a singer or whatever their goal is. And sometimes it doesn't happen the way you want it. And I think the divine sends you where you're supposed to go or sends you where you need to go, and it's not what you think. And I would speak from my own experience. I always wanted to be a Broadway star. Didn't happen. I choreographed Broadway. I performed on Broadway as a ballroom dancer, but I was never one of those triple threats. But I received so much more differently, and my self-worth was gone for a long time because I never thought I met my goal. And by understanding these issues in the book of Ballroomology, and by the way, I just wanted to clarify, the only reason I called it Ballroomology was because I was a ballroom dancer. And people knew me by that name. So because I was in the business for so long, it was just easier for me to hook up that name. I don't know, maybe I would have called it something else, but I think it applies to everything. So definitely self-worth. I think that's the main thing that is very, very important. Trusting your gut instinct, which I think I didn't trust for a long, long time. And that is so important in a spiritual awareness. It's what Mr. Trivedi talks about, your inner guidance system, trusting that, self-worth, trusting that, and just being committed and having no judgment on yourself, letting go of that mind chat, because you can do it. I can relive it over and over again, performances that I thought were just so horrible I never wanted to show my face again. And then people are screaming, you were great. I'm like, I fell down 3 times. What didn't you see? But it's all about how you present yourself and how you feel about yourself and your willingness to grow in consciousness, and know that as you get older, the biggest thing for dancers in general is that as you get older, you can't do it anymore. Even if I go to the gym and even if I go to ballet class, even if I go to yoga, your body will not do it. And I think the most frustrating thing is that I understand so many principles of spirituality, of mind, of body movement. When I was in class, I thought I understood what muscles we're using, but all I cared about was winning, and I didn't have time to really study it. And you're young and you have a lot of energy, so I just jumped out there with the energy and I kicked my leg up behind my head, but I didn't know how it got there. But I just knew it went behind my head, you know. But now I understand how that happens. And as you get older, I think that's a funny thing that the divine and the God do. It's like you understand it, but you can't do it, you know. I always thought if I end up in heaven, I want to talk to God about that. I understand it, but now I can't do it. But maybe I can help somebody else do it at a younger age, hopefully.
I'm someone who I couldn't even do a pull-up when I was 9 years old or ever get my head up anywhere. So you have a gift that not everybody has. I did want to switch gears just a little bit because I was interested in finding more about a passion of yours, the Ballroom Barks, because I know you sent me a photograph of you with your little dog, and so it told me that little dog meant something to you.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me about that?
Absolutely. Well, I have been an animal person my whole life. A lot of empathy to animal causes. And, you know, most artists have animals. And my dance teacher always had a little chihuahua in the studio with her. Many coaches have little dogs with them in the studio. And I always had dogs and cats and birds my whole life. And I always wanted to do something for them. And I wanted to use the ballroom community venues to unite them to help animals with their causes. And after I retired, I formed Ballroombarks.org, which has a website as well. And it's basically going around to different ballroom dancers and communities, and we're all getting together to try to help rescue different animals, bring animal awareness. Do you really have to wear that fur coat right now? Does you really want to do that to an animal? Do you really want to do that? Trying to stop some animal experiments that aren't necessary. But mostly what we do is we do help people with extreme veterinary bills. And I'll bring little Gabriel in a second. So when I rescued him, he was on death row in South Carolina. Perfectly wonderful little chihuahua. Very badly abused. When I rescued him, he hid under the bed for 1 year before he would come out. That's how badly abused he was. So I carried him on my chest for 8 months so he could feel my heartbeat. And he finally, pushing forward, he's now a little New Yorker. You know, he's all over the place because I've had him for like 6 years. Now he's a big shot. But, the first couple of years were a little tough. He had some severe medical issues. He actually ruptured a disc in his back, became paralyzed in his back legs. We rushed him to the animal hospital here in New York City. And the reason I'm saying this is because they removed 3 discs in his back. They fused his spine, and he's made a full recovery. And what we try to do to tell people now is they treat animals just like they do for humans. They have physical therapy. They have chemotherapy. They have those legs and arms that you can put on an animal. They would put a dog or an animal down because they had an issue. Now they extend their life. Little Gabriel had stem cell in his knees. Everything they do for a human, they do for an animal now because they have the technology. And it's just making people aware of how to treat an animal differently. You'd have to treat them like you would a child. You have to make sure they have the right nutrition. If you brush their teeth every night, they don't have disease. It's a whole different education. So we're trying to educate people. And I put together a little video on my website, theballroombarks.org, that shows Gabriel's journey, how he was, he did acupuncture. They showed his spinal injury. They showed him doing the walking underwater with the tank, doing his exercises, and how he looked like he couldn't walk and now he's walking. And, that kind of awareness is important. And we have also posted on our website many animals that we've helped. We've helped some in India. We've helped some all over the United States. We've helped some that had a bad knee, people that the vet bills are very, very high, and people want to help their animals. We try to encourage them and show them how to get animal insurance. And we try to teach children little seminars on how to treat an animal is how you treat your ballroom dance partner. The same thing, so there's that kindness, that awareness, in general. That's my big passion, actually.
Well, that's really beautiful because, people, you brought up so many things that, I remember, back in the day when if something happened to an animal, the first thing was, they called it put them to sleep.
Right.
And now, of course, all of those things like a dog that had been severely abused, that they might have euthanized that little dog because they would have said, oh, there's no hope.
Right.
But yet you, through your love and attention, the little dog came out of it and knew that he was lovable and is loved. And now he's a good little New Yorker dog. So you're really right. And I think that really says a lot too about the different, how you can help, other people and animals, and how that community, the ballroom community, is there and can give back and everything. So that's beautiful. So it's ballroombarks.org.
Right.
And then it's ballroomology.com. And your book on Amazon is Ballroomology. Right.
The study of ballroom dance, right.
And then you also have a book, a science book, right, related to what topic that was just published by Trivedi Global?
That was the effect of the consciousness and the energy transmissions with vitamin D3.
Oh, okay. Vitamin D3 research, which is really important in today's world, because most of the planet, for whatever reason, is vitamin D deficient. So it's really important that there is scientific research done on that, and that you've been part of it. So, Bonnie, before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to share?
Yes, I would like to say that regarding Ballroom Barks, we also strongly try to make people aware of rescuing dogs rather than going to a breeder. And if you go to your local shelter, it's always important to, rescue an animal first, because 99.9% of the time it's a great animal that we don't know how they got there. And you want to go to, unfortunately, what's called the control centers, animal care and control. Every city has one. And unfortunately, they're called the kill shelters. And those animals only have a 2-week time frame before they get rescued or something happens. So we try to make people be aware of that, number one. I do have another ebook coming out, which is actually on skincare. That will be out in a couple weeks. But the vitamin D3 is, I have a website out, BonnieDiaz.com, specifically for my energy transmissions, which I use for animals and artists. And we deal with talking about anxiety, performance anxiety, which is important, how to deal with whatever it is you're dealing with at the time. And I don't know, it's just all about being true to yourself, being true to divine, trusting your instinct, and making it happen.
Wow. So BonnieDiaz.com, and that's DIAZ.com, and Bonnie is BONNIE. So BonnieDiaz.com. And you can find out more about the energy work that you do. Ballroomology.com is a beautiful website with that historical aspect that I think is really important, because, like I said, as a non-dancer, I learned a lot just from looking at that. And then, of course, ballroombarks.com. Ballroombarks.org is an organization that can help you learn more about animals. And of course, they have programs to help with vet bills. And it's really great that you're talking about the rescue dogs. And I've rescued some dogs. And what always has been amazing to me is sometimes you'll read what the dog supposedly did.
Right.
And then you go, well, you look at the dog and you go, but you take them home anyway. And then you go, they don't do any of those things that we're accused of doing. So I think sometimes people get so desperate that they just write as many negative things down as possible so that they can walk away. because
yes. And that's an excellent point, because just so you know, around Christmas and New Year's is when people decide to buy a dog for a present, you know. And I always say to people, unless you're really willing to take care of an animal, don't get it. Don't get it. It's better off where it is. And then after the first of the year, people realize, wait a minute, I've had this dog for 3 or 4 weeks. I got to walk it. I got to feed it. I got to clean it. And they just throw it back to the shelter. And that's worse. So I always say, be true to what really has to happen with an animal. And I always say, if you can't take care of it, do not rescue it. Do not. Very important. You know,
because it is like adopting a child.
Yeah.
I mean, I've adopted a dog, and it is like adopting a child, because you have to take them to the vet. You have to feed them the right food. You have to pay attention to them, and
you have to walk them
and clean up after them. And if they have any issues, you have to try to figure out why they're having their problems. Like, I have a dog that I'm babysitting for my son, and I live in Florida. Well, both of us, when it gets cold, I get an extra blanket, and the dog looks at me like, hey, I want an extra blanket.
Where's my blanket? Yeah.
So I put the blanket on her, and she snuggles in and goes right to sleep. So you have to be very aware that they need you to love them and take care of them as if they were a child. And it is that type of commitment too. It's a lifetime commitment that you make with these animals. And I
wanted to say, the little ones, they last a long time. So you know, they last a long time. They last anywhere from 18 to 20 years, the little dogs. Wow. So if you get a little one, pay attention. You know, what is your age? What is the dog's age? You know, the larger dogs, they don't have that long of a lifespan, but the little ones is a long time. So what I always say to people, if you're a senior person, get a senior dog. You know what I mean? Don't get a little puppy. Don't do it. You know, there's different ways to go about it, and you got to be intelligent about it. Not because it's cute. You got to realize what really goes down with it, and you got to step up, you know, because the animal will trust you. The animal will be devote and give you unconditional love. The animal will protect you. The animal will die for you if he has to. So you must do the same thing. You know, be true to that.
Well, Bonnie, I think you should write a book about your Ballroom Barks, about a guide to help people choose the right pet for them.
That's a good idea.
There's a need for that.
Did you want to meet little Gabriel real quick? You want to say
Yes, I'd love to meet Gabriel.
Come, Papa. Come. I just woke him up out of a deep sleep. He's a little cranky.
Oh.
This is little Gabriel.
Hi, Gabriel. Yeah.
Hi, Auntie Tammy.
Hi.
Say hi. This is Gabriel Jackson, known affectionately around the world as Little G.
Little G.
He's a good boy. He's a Chihuahua, and he's 8 years old. And he does a lot of rescue work with me, and we do donations of shelter work all over the country. And he comes to different events to give me a kiss, a little kiss. Thank you. Yeah, so that's my baby.
Oh, he's so cute. Little G.
Little G.
Well, that's so wonderful. Well, Bonnie, it's really been enjoyable talking with you. And again, let's see, ballroombarks.org, ballroomology.com, bonniediaz.com, and you can get Ballroomology on Amazon right now.
Right.
And of course, check out the website. And it's just, I think we've just had a marvelous conversation. And is there any last thing in case I forgot to ask you something?
I think that you were phenomenal, and I thank you so much for the opportunity. And you put that in my head about the ebook for Ballroom Barks, a guide to ballroom dancers, you know, helping the animals. And I think that's the next thing that's going to happen.
Good. Well, I think it's important because I know that, you know, animals, that they're here and they give us so much love, and they deserve to get back, you know, all that love from us and that protection that we should provide.
And thank you. And I just wanted to say, how you treat an animal is how you treat a human. So It's important. But I thank you so much for your time and for the opportunity. And little Gabriel and I look forward to working with you again in the future. You want to say goodbye, little G?
Bye, little
G. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This has been Bonnie Diaz, Little G, and this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to Women Innovators with Tammy Patzer. To learn more, please go to womeninnovatorsradio.com. And please do subscribe and share to spread the big messages and big missions to change the world.